Good morning. It is December 31st, 1855, and for those of you just joining us, this is A&N News. I'm Eugene Boutin, and welcome to our special segment, The Year in Review, where we will be giving a brief rundown on this year's events and getting opinions from commentators, and we will be interviewing our president and the author of Uncle Tom's Cabin. Some of the main topics being discussed today will include the presidential election of 1852, Uncle Tom's Cabin, and the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Franklin Pierce, a Democrat from New Hampshire, defeated Whig candidate Winfield Scott. Pierce, often considered a dark horse, won 254 electoral votes, and Scott only 42 in a landslide victory. We are going to go to Val with an exclusive interview with President Pierce.
Thank you, Eugene. Here with me I have President Franklin Pierce. Mr. President, how do you feel about your landslide victory over competitor Winfield Scott?
I feel that my political views better represented the needs and the views of the nation at this time, and that the inconsistencies associated with Scott's candidacy would have hindered him in further presidency.
What do you wish to accomplish while in office?
I wish to continue the development of the southern cotton economy, and I also wish to continue expansion westward and south into Mexico.
What were some of your major accomplishments?
Well, I signed the Kansas-Nebraska Act in 1854, which ended up nullifying the Missouri Compromise and also allowing the Kansas Territory to decide whether or not they would be slave or free states themselves. And finally, I supported the Fugitive Slave Act in 1850, which placed stronger restrictions on slaves and forced any escaped slave to be returned to their owners despite them being in a free state or a slave state at the time.
What are your views on Uncle Tom's Cabin?
I do not believe that the novel accurately depicts the southern cotton economy or the lifestyle of a slave, and that the abolition of southern slavery would be detrimental to the economy of the United States.
Well, there you have it. Back to Eugene in the studio.
Passed by Congress on May 30th, 1854, this act effectively nullified the Missouri Compromise of 1820. It has been a source of ongoing controversy within the nation and has furthered the cultural and political division between the North and the South. In the studio, we have with us two commentators from the North and the South, Jefferson Davis, a senator from Mississippi, and Lewis David Campbell, an Ohio Free Soiler. Mr. Davis, what are your views on the Kansas-Nebraska Act?
Thank you for having me here today. I believe that this decision by President Pierce was the right one. The Nebraska Territory needed to be organized, and this act ensures that the land will be put to good use. Also, allowing the citizens to decide on whether or not they want slavery is in line with the constitutional principle of popular sovereignty. Allowing the central government to decide where slavery can take place is simply un-American.
And what do you say to that, Mr. Campbell?
Well, I think that if Mr. Davis is so concerned about what is American, he would realize that slavery is one of the most un-American institutions around today. It takes away the freedom of human beings. America was founded upon freedom for all, yet Southerners continue to ignore this fact. The Kansas-Nebraska Act directly violates the Missouri Compromise of 1820 and was a direct attempt to give the South more power in Congress. Americans have the right to be upset. The Missouri Compromise was a temporary solution to a much bigger problem. Promoting the disgusting institution of slavery will only further this problem. I believe that conflicts in the Nebraska region will only continue to grow and may even become violent. How dare you! You just insulted the entire Southern way of life. The disgusting institution of slavery is what is supporting this nation's...
That's all the time we have for this segment. Thank you for your input, gentlemen. Uncle Tom's Cabin, a novel by Harriet Beecher Stowe, was published in 1852 and has since sold hundreds of thousands of copies all over the world. It has generated controversy because of its strong position on American slavery. We are joined by two guests on the program here to share their opinions on Uncle Tom's Cabin. Firstly, General James Weaver, how do you feel about this novel?
I thought Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin was an extremely powerful book, and it deserves all the praise and popularity it is receiving. Reading this book actually inspired me to become more active in the abolitionist movement. It publicly criticizes slavery, which deserves to be criticized so that more people will stand up against it.
William Gilmore Simms, your thoughts?
I completely disagree with General Weaver. Stowe has never stepped foot on a Southern plantation, so her description of Southern life throughout this novel was wildly inaccurate and offensive. I wrote a book pointing out all of the flaws within her work. Stowe's novel does not deserve all the attention it is getting. While some of the details within the book may not be realistic, it is the anti-slavery message that is important. Don't you agree, Mr. Sims? No, of course not. America is already divided upon this issue as it is. The abolitionist viewpoints Stowe forces upon our readers in this book are what are tearing the nation apart. I would advise all Americans to avoid this piece of literature at all costs, for the sake of the unity of this country.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll now switch to Val, who is interviewing Harriet Beecher Stowe.
Here we have Harriet Beecher Stowe, the American author of the novel Uncle Tom's Cabin. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Val. Thanks for having me.
So let's get started. Your novel has been doing great since you published it. It sold hundreds of thousands of copies in America and 1 million in Great Britain. What was your inspiration of this novel?
Well, I was really inspired by the narrative, The Life of Josiah Henson, formerly a slave, now an inhabitant of Canada, as narrated by himself. He was actually the basis of my main character, Uncle Tom. And I was inspired by other publications as well, but what really impacted my writing was the death of my son, Charlie.
Fascinating. So what would you say the intended purpose of your novel was? What did you hope it would do?
I intended for the public to be exposed of the evils and horrors of slavery. I really wanted anyone that was unaware to know about its immorality. It was also important for me to show our country the importance of women's rights. Even though all of these things are very negative, it was important to show the public how powerful the effect of Christian love is and how it can overcome the evil that goes on in the world, especially slavery and lack of women's rights.
Do you feel the novel's popularity has helped or harmed its purpose?
I think it's definitely helped because now my word and my message has gotten around not only in America but in other countries as well. I'm really pleased that my work has been getting people into the process of abolition.
Thank you, Miss Stowe. And back to you.
Harriet, your novel is trash. You've never even stepped foot in the South.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you to all our commentators and our staff here at the studio. And thank you to all our viewers. I'm Eugene Boutin, signing out. Our special segment, the Year in Review. Special segment. And the Kansas City, I said city again.
And finally,
Shut up, Chloe!
Okay. Don't touch my mustaches.
Uncle Tom's Cabin